Welcome back to After Hours, guys, with me, Jimmy Thistle. Today we've got Ashley Howard. She is just an amazing Wonder Woman on the Instagram, helping people. She's a sober coach. She's a life coach. But her life, started out being brought up by her single mum who was out working a lot of the time. And she thinks that a lot of that kind of, not being kind of monitored 24/7 kind of led to a kind of a little bit of less like that led to her drinking because she would not be kind of supervised a lot of the time, so she could get away with things and kind of just but the point was she was a straight A student, doing sports, doing ticking all the boxes and doing everything that was expected from her. So from the outset, she was doing great. So she was drinking like everyone else her age, her peers, so it wasn't a huge big deal until she went to college. And again, it was just social drinking. She was doing all her classes, but at the weekend she was just kind of going on blowouts. She got arrested at 19 for like drunken possession and being underage. So she had to do community service and all these kind of things. A couple of years later, she got a DUI. And you'd think that these were, 19 and then 21 from a straight A student, like red flags, but nobody saw it as that. I think they just all kind of brushed it under the carpet and thought, well, it could have been much worse. Let's just move on, like draw a line and we'll get through this. And on paper, Ashley's life was just great husband, a couple of kids. But she was drinking socially and then getting home. And as she said, like her happy place was when all her family were, in bed, asleep, and she could do her proper drinking. And that's the thing. That's the kind of secret drinking aspect of it, where it's not a social thing anymore. We're just doing it because we need it, I guess, I guess she said she knew she needed to wake up from it and get away from it, but she just didn't know how to, and she wasn't ready. So that comes later. But yeah, sit back, guys. Listen for the similarities as always. Ashley's got a great story and she's a great woman. So I hope you guys enjoy it like I enjoyed speaking to her. So see you at the end. Cheers. Ashley, welcome to After Hours. How are you today?
Hey Jimmy, I'm doing really well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I mean it's as I say, this will be out in 2026, but right now today is a week until Christmas Day, so it's all a bit hectic in the house. There's wrapping, there's kind of decorations everywhere. So how is it for you guys? Do you celebrate Christmas? Is that something that you do, or?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we are big
Yeah.
Christmas celebrators here. I'm in the US. I live in South Carolina. I have
Mhm.
two kids that are still fairly young. They're 8 and 5. So we have
Right.
all the elves, the elf on the shelf. We have Christmas gifts under the tree. It's just craziness over here.
Yeah, same. So I've got three step kids, 15, 13, and 9. So the 9-year-old is still steeped in that kind of magic. And the older two kind of, they obviously go along with it because they still feel part of the magic. It's not completely gone yet. And it's a great time of year and I absolutely love it. So yeah. So you're in South Carolina. Is it
Yeah.
warm still there? I mean, what's,
Yeah, it's fairly warm, so we really
yeah,
don't get snow. I think we
right.
got a dusting last year and everything shuts down, but
Hmm.
it's warm enough that we can have like a light jacket. It's not too
No.
cold, which I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so the northeast of the
Oh,
country, and we
yeah.
get a lot of snow, and I'm grateful for the milder weather now for sure.
Yeah, yeah. See, we're fairly mild here. We probably won't get snow, but it's just that damp, miserable, pretty kind of cold, but not cold enough for snow. So I'm a gardener, so I'm out in it like in all weathers. So I'm enjoying being in the evening. It's raining outside now, and we're gonna have a lovely little chat, Ashley. So thank you for giving up your time. Uh, Tell us really, what was your childhood like, and when did you have your first drink?
Yeah, I would say fairly normal childhood. Aside from being the daughter of a single parent, my parents divorced when I was very young. So
Hmm.
my mom had three children. She was a nurse, so she was working all day long. We had to go to school, and then we would go to an after school program because my mom was still at work, and then we would be picked up very late. So my childhood was really, I was raised in more of these like daycare type settings than all I wanted was my mom to stay home, and that just wasn't possible. But I
Yeah,
actually think that upbringing led me to start experimenting with alcohol and experimenting with things that I know I shouldn't, because my mom did her best, but she was at work a lot. So we
yeah,
had more time on our own. We did have some time that we didn't always have adult supervision. So when I really think back on like when was my first drink, I think I was probably 14. I remember being at a friend's house and we were in the basement and someone had a bottle of something.
hmm,
And I don't think I felt anything, but I did take a drink of it. And in that moment, I felt like, okay, I feel accepted. I feel like I have more confidence. And even at 14 years old, knowing that was like, I knew that I had sort of unleashed something within myself. And that's probably where it started.
yeah, yeah. And it's scary, isn't it? I mean, I think I would say like 95% of the people on the podcast are like 14. I was 14, and I've got, as I say, I've got stepkids, and, they're gonna try it. I don't think they have yet, or maybe they've had a taste like yourself, but like they haven't come in, steaming drunk yet. And I hope that doesn't happen, but it's one of those things. And but it was a different era back when I was drinking at an early age, and I just loved it. I don't think like you. My parents split up when I was 6, and my mum was working all the hours. I think she had 3 different jobs. We didn't go without, because she was providing. But yeah, there was times where my brother and me maybe had a little bit more freedom than others, and yeah, and I guess I kind of made my freedom as well, because I would just kind of push the boundaries to try and see what I could get away with as well as I kind of got older. So how did your kind of drinking develop through your teen years? Was that like keg parties and that? Well, I excuse my ignorance. This is just what I see of America from the movies. It's like keg parties and yeah,
It's like those movies that everyone has red Solo cups, and yes, there was a lot of that in my college years. But I think if we look at high school, ages
yeah,
like 14 to 18, it was a lot of sneaking around. So for
mm,
me, I even remember this was before cell phones and we could track everyone's location. Like I would say that I was going to sleep over at my friend's house, and my
yeah,
friend would say that she was sleeping over at my house, and then we would be, essentially, we had our cars. We were 16 years old,
hmm,
so we would just be out for the night, and parents didn't really question it. They assumed we were at each other's houses.
yeah,
So we would literally just find someone who was having people over, a
yeah,
basement, like it was anything that we could just like get our hands on. And if that usually meant there was alcohol there. So we
hmm,
would simply go to someone's house and we would drink as much as we possibly could, and we would pass out there, and we'd wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning and quickly go back home and pretend that we were at our friend's house all night. And that really became a pattern, like 16, 17 years old. I would say every other weekend, we were at least
yeah,
having one night where we were just out, and there was always a kid whose parents weren't home, or someone who
yeah.
just was in a basement, and we would
Yeah,
get our
they were
hands on
kind of like
alcohol.
not.
And
Sorry, I was going
yeah,
to say
it was like
the
that.
parents are kind of like just you crack on. We know where you are, so it's safe and all that kind of mentality. So yeah, but then you're waking up and you're probably not really hungover at all, because you're that young. Do you know what I mean? It's not really affecting you that much, and you're not drinking maybe as much as you did later. So yeah, it's madness. And were you like good at school? Did you stick in and not get affected by that?
Yeah, and that's where I look at, like, I was a really good student. I was
Mm,
like a straight A student. I never missed school. I was on the surface, if you would see me, you would think like she has it all together. She's a really good
yeah.
kid. And not that I think I was inherently bad, but like there was always this rebellious streak in me that's like, I can have it all together and I'm going to go
Yeah.
do what I want to do on the weekends and make these choices. And of course, there were things I regretted and I got away with things for a very long time. And that would lead
Mm.
us into my college years, which we can talk about. But that with teenage years is my first time at like independence and recognizing that alcohol, the role that it played was thinking that I had more confidence, thinking that I
Yeah.
was more accepted, thinking that I was, more attractive to boys or whatever it was. And I
Hmm.
could go home and be okay and then go to school the next day. And it was kind of dangerous because the rest of my life was going so well. No
Hmm.
one really knew, parents didn't know that I had this other side to me. So yeah, looking back, it's like it was very sneaky of me.
But also in a way, it's what everyone else is doing as well. So it's not like you're kind of out there doing this on your own with like some nefarious older people. You're just doing what socializing is for young people. That kind of learned behavior. And if everything on surface, like you're straight A student, you're doing sports and whatnot, you're doing great. So like, what's the problem? And that gives us kind of almost like a kind of um, like a roadmap for our life, doesn't it? Because we think, well, we're managing, we're doing it okay, it's fine, it's not affecting anything in our life, but we're having fun. And again, like you said, that confidence thing, that was massive for me because I seemed to be funnier when I was drinking. I was more outgoing. I could talk to girls. I could, make my friends laugh. But that all that was doing was giving me that confidence. It was still me that was coming out with all of these things, but I just had that confidence to do it with the alcohol, and I loved that. And I was like, this is what my makeup is, my mo. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
So how did
absolutely.
that
I
kind
felt
of
it too.
obviously you've finished high school, and then went on to college. What did you do at college?
Yes, so graduated high school, went to college at, over in the States, we start college at 18 years old,
Yeah.
and I lived away from home for the first time. So that was, I mean, it was just like fair game to go crazy every weekend. And
Yeah.
that's when you mentioned the like what you know of America is like those college parties, and that was absolutely my experience. There was always some apartment or some house that was having a party, and again, kind of like high school, I never missed class in college. I would get all
Yeah.
my assignments done on time. I was involved in extracurriculars, but that was how I completely let go every single weekend. And I
Yeah.
was pretty good back then of like I wouldn't drink during the week, but I
Hmm.
would get incredibly drunk on Fridays and Saturdays, and I would just repeat that cycle
Yeah.
for years. And being at school, and there were so many decisions that, of course, I regret and situations I put myself in. But it's like I would just wake up the next day and go about my life and not really think about, hey, every weekend you're binge drinking. Like this is
Hmm.
not necessarily healthy. But like you mentioned, everyone else seemed to be doing it, so I also felt like it was sort of normal.
Yeah, but also like over here, and I've spoken about this in the podcast. Like I didn't go to university till later. Like I think I was 29, 30. But like I did college, so it wasn't like the same. I know you guys call university college, but they have a thing over here called Freshers Week. So like the first week of
Mhm.
like kind of intake of the university, they give you out all these passes. Like of course it's meant to be for joining other clubs and things like that. But Freshers Week over here is known for its booziness. Now over here, the age for drinking is 18, but in the US it's 21. So like obviously you've got all these college kids just straight from home getting completely, drunk, pissed up, and it's still that's illegal, isn't it, in your country? So it's
Yeah.
but is it encouraged by the university? And I'm not saying encouraged, but like in the UK, they'll give you these passes that are like you can get 2 for 1 pints or 50p shots, and they'll give you this like whole booklet full of like vouchers where you can go and these kids are just coming from home where they can barely boil pasta, and they're just being introduced to this wild drinking party lifestyle. It's to me it's madness that it still goes on, but that's kind of the way
Yeah.
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. Like our age is 21, but that didn't matter. When you're 18 and someone's having a party, it's
Yeah.
just you're just so excited to be able to be there and drink and have it and feel so cool and accepted. And yeah, and that led me to actually my first arrest when I was 19 years old. I got arrested for in the US they call it like underage possession of alcohol. So I was
Oh
just
wow.
walking with my friend down the street, and I was clearly drunk, clearly very intoxicated, and I was arrested. And you would think that would have been a mini wake up call for me, but it
Uh,
wasn't. I had to go through tons of community service hours and classes. And, 19 years old, I had to tell my family what happened, but I chalked it up to like, hey, I'm in college. This is what people do. I just happened to be caught doing it.
you were unlucky, and like I'm surprised they did all that to you. Obviously, they were trying to make an example, but like seriously, your first offense, like just kind of a rap on the wrist. Do you know what I mean? A slap on the wrist, and then on your way, don't do it again. But like they gave you all community service, and wow, but you didn't obviously learn your lesson because you're in college, and you're like, hey, this is this is a talking point. This is a story I can tell people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Of course, there
you
was shame
obviously
around that. Like, yeah, like I was very embarrassed that I had gotten
yeah.
caught because up until that point, up until age 19, I was able to kind of do all this stuff without getting caught. So that was my first
Mhm.
experience of like, oh, you are accountable to your actions and sometimes it's not going to work out in your favor. So that was a lesson for me, but obviously I'd still kept drinking for the next 15 years, so it didn't really stick back then.
Yeah, yeah. And did that like affect because that's like on your record or whatever, would that affect any of your kind of job, kind of prospects or anything like that? Or was it just such a minor kind of, criminality that it was okay, you weren't too worried about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as I remember, I think that one it did not stay on your record, your permanent
Hmm.
record, because it was a first offense. And once I had completed my classes and my community service, like I believe it did disappear. So
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the time it disappeared, I was still in college. So it did not affect like potential jobs, which was a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good because, like, it can, and I think it's more so in the US because I watch documentaries and things like certain, like even just getting like shoplifting or something like that. That can be on there for their life. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like you're never going to get like the jobs that you maybe dreamed of because you've done this one stupid thing when you were, in college or whatever. So yeah, so well done. I mean, obviously, I'm glad that didn't follow you around. So, what happened really once you finished uni? Did you get college? Did you get a good job in your field or?
I did, yeah. And then something else did happen before I got out of college when I was
Mm.
21. So I was finally legally able to drink. And this was only about several months after I turned 21 that an older friend of mine invited me out one night and
Hmm.
she was driving. And then she ended up getting drunk and not able to drive. And I hadn't drank that much that night, but I drove her car home. And hindsight, obviously, should not have done that. But I looked at it like she cannot drive and I'm feeling okay, so I will just get us home. Got
Yeah.
pulled over, got a DUI, and I had to go through all the process again of community service and classes. And I had to get a lawyer and I had to do all these things to expedite because it was my first DUI. I was able
Hmm.
to do an accelerated program that would not stay on my permanent record. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still lost my license for a little bit. I had to do all these things. So within 2 years, age 19 and age 21, I had two run ins with the law about alcohol. And for
Yeah.
some reason, maybe I was just very young. I was not able to take accountability for it. My DUI was, I wasn't supposed to be driving. This other person was driving, and I had to take her home because she made this decision. Right.
Yeah.
But of
Yeah.
course,
You're
looking
like
back, being old, yeah.
it's almost like you're thinking I'm doing the right thing here. Other obviously the right thing in hindsight is we know being older, you leave the car and you get a taxi home. Like
Right.
that's it. But like obviously you thought, well, we don't have money for that, or I'm fine, I can drive, and you probably were fine to drive. But obviously the legal limit and how fine you're feeling is completely different. So yeah, but like, how are your parents at this point, or your mum at least? When you've told her you've got that one when you're 19, and then 21, got to tell her again that you're kind of, yeah, you've had a DUI. How was that? How did that go down?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so embarrassing for me because
Yeah.
again, like I was the stand-up student. I was always the one that got good grades and has everything. Like I was someone you didn't have to worry about. So be having to tell her was embarrassing, but also
Mm.
like in a way, she's a great mom. I think she was more enabling because she did not come down hard on me that I remember. She was like, "You're right. You shouldn't have been in that position. We'll figure it out. We'll get you out of this." Um, Obviously, I took responsibility for what I had to do to be right with my charge with the law, but I think had she come down harder on me, I don't know. I don't know if that would have helped, but I don't remember her actually being very angry. It was more just like, okay, this happened. Let's figure out how to fix it. Um,
Yeah.
when in reality, I think I could have used some tough love.
Yeah, but it's a difficult one from because like as you say on the surface, and this is not like fake news, you are a really good student. You've been doing this, you're sticking in it at college and you're doing really well. This is just one of these things. It's not like like I don't know if you've seen the film 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, where she drives a car into like someone's house over the yard and crashes it. Like you didn't do that. You were doing the right thing. I'm not saying drink driving's the right thing, but in your mind you were, and you didn't crash. You got pulled over. So she's probably like, do I come down hard on her, or do I go right? You know what? Let's draw a line under this. We'll get her the help she needs. So it's a difficult one, isn't
Right.
it? And I understand what you're saying. Maybe that might have given you the red flag that you needed, but would it have? It's tough, because again, we're young. All of our friends, like if someone had said to me back then, and I'm sure probably a lot of people did, like you probably need to stop drinking or at least calm it down. I wouldn't have listened to them, because it was like, this is what I do, this is who I am, and all of my friends are doing it. What am I supposed to do if I'm not drinking? And I think it takes maturity to learn that you can kind of live without it, if you need to. So yeah, um,
Sure. I relate so much to that. I do. I think it's because I'm not the example of she's crashing and burning her life, right?
yeah,
I had everything else together, and this was this one thing that wasn't really aligning with the rest of my life. But you're right. If someone had come to me, if it was a mom or if it was a boyfriend or my husband, like, and really sat me down and said, "You need to stop," I don't know that that would have helped me at that point.
hmm yeah. I mean, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? But I guess we have to go through a lot of these things to become the people we are. Like as I say, I don't have many regrets apart from maybe emotional turmoil I cause people, but this has all led to who I am and what I'm doing now. So yeah. So how did it kind of develop over after college? Did you? Yeah, you were saying you did get a good job in your field, and
I did. Yeah, I did. I got a job right out of college. I actually do remember right before I got hired, they did call me and ask me about the DUI charge was on my record. It was eventually
right,
supposed to leave the record, but I had that phone call of like, "Hey, this came up. Can you explain this?"
yeah,
And I had to go in. I had to write down what happened. And again, very just humbling, embarrassing. I still ended up getting that job, which was great.
hmm,
But yeah, I had to relive that. This was a year later, and I had to relive it again. So it was just very
yeah.
hard to go through that. But got a job right
Especially
out of
when you want.
college.
I was going to say, especially when you're going after like possibly your dream job. You're not just coming out of college and going to work at I don't know, McDonald's or something. No problem with that, but like you're obviously going into what you've qualified to do, and then there's almost this hurdle, and it's like, oh geez. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So very grateful to have still gotten hired at that job. Being 22
Hmm.
years old, and it was actually on a work trip that I met my current
Hmm.
husband. That so we met randomly when I was 23, and decided to leave that job and move halfway across the country to be with him and start this new adventure. And alcohol was always along for the ride. Like it was always
Yeah.
that passenger in my life. And my husband actually is not a was never a big drinker. So I actually
Okay.
am so grateful now looking back. I'm like, had I ended up with someone who was as much of a drinker as I was, I don't know. I don't know what could have
Yeah.
happened, but he really calmed me down over the years. And, it's hard to sum up 10 years of my life, but we ended up getting married. We have two children now and moved several more times. And, we've been settled here for a while. And I started my own business. So after leaving a corporate job, I started a fitness coaching business that I grew for the last 12 years. And now I do life coaching and sober coaching. But
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur was, again, it really fueled me. Like I'm a very hard worker. I'm very focused and driven, but every night on my drinking went from like high school and college was just out of control, wild, in public, and then in
Hmm.
mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s was really private. So I'm drinking on the
Yeah.
couch. I'm drinking alone at night when the kids are asleep. I'm going out, but I'm being very in control socially, and then getting drunk when I get home. Like it had
Yeah.
to be behind closed doors because I had to protect the image, especially as a business owner and promoting my lifestyle of health and fitness. I
Hmm.
couldn't promote that I had a problem with drinking. I was drinking every night. So over, and then a big part of my story is 10 years ago, my brother passed away because
Mm,
of complications from his drug use. And then my
right.
dad passed away because of lung cancer from smoking for 40 years. So in 1 year, I lost two members of my family from preventable ways, like things that
Yeah.
could have been prevented. And I, for a while, this was 10 years ago, I really separated myself from them. I said, this is traumatic, this is terrible, but my brother did drugs and my dad smoked cigarettes, and I don't do either of those things. But what
Yeah.
I didn't see at the time was alcohol is just as much a drug as anything. And it was going to catch up with me if I didn't make changes because I was truly dependent on it. I don't know if I was an alcoholic, but I do know that most nights I was drinking two, three, four drinks every night and
Yeah.
then just trying to get through the day until I could drink again. But again, on the surface, people didn't really know that about me. So
No,
that
because
was
you're
a
holding
that
it
was a big
together.
moment.
Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, I mean, I hate the word alcoholic. Yeah, I've sat in a room and said my name's Jimmy and I'm an alcoholic, but I don't like the word. I don't use it anymore. A, because I'm not dependent on alcohol anymore, but B, because you know it has that negative connotation of someone sat on a park bench with a bottle in a brown paper bag, and it's like you don't have to be an alcoholic for it to have a negative impact on your life, and if it was like the fact that you're doing it on your own because you got that image to protect, it's almost like a shameful drinking, isn't it? It's like I want to do this, but I'm not going to let people see how bad I do get. And it's just that whole someone said like alcohol misuse disorder or use disorder. It's a disease that wants you on its own. Do you know what I mean? It starts out with all this socializing and partying and drinking with friends, but eventually, majority of the people that I know and speak to, they always end up on their own. They'll still socialize, but when they're doing their proper drinking, it's by themselves with their little friend
Yeah.
alcohol. So yeah, and as I say, that word, middle road drinkers, grey area drinker, alcoholic, it doesn't matter what you are or what you think you are. If it's having this like negative impact on your life, if it's causing you issues, and let's be honest, like I didn't know I knew the dangers of smoking because the packets and all that had everything on it when I smoked. And I thought, yeah, 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 but I'll deal with that. I'm going to quit before I get older. And I did. But also, alcohol is a carcinogen. It's linked to 7 types of cancers now. And it's like, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that until I got sober, and I'm sure you didn't know at the time because we're led to believe of this kind of glamorous, sophisticated image. You were probably thinking, well, I've got this great business. I'm going to come home. I deserve a glass of wine, and I'm going to put it in a really lovely wine glass, and I'm drinking because I'm successful. And I'm sure that's kind of one of the things you're telling yourself, even though deep down inside you think, yeah, I need to stop this at some point. Yeah. And how was your
Yeah.
husband kind of? So you're married at this point with kids. How was he thinking about your drinking, or were you even kind of hiding most of it from him as well?
Yeah, yeah. What you described is so very accurate. It was more of like it was shameful, and
Mm,
I felt like it was the mental gymnastics of just being alone and drinking, and that was just so very well explained. But yes, I would also hide it from him. My ideal time to drink, I would start with a glass and then kind of hopefully wish that he would go to bed, and so I could
mm-hmm.
continue. And that was my real freedom. Like my real freedom was when my whole family was asleep and
Yeah.
I could drink as much as I wanted. So I would end up, there were years that we never went to bed at the same time. He just knew he would go to sleep when he was tired and I would stay up. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like he obviously knew I liked to drink. He knew that it was a part of my life. He knew that sometimes I would express wanting to cut back, but I think he also knew that if he would come to me, unless of course I was in a dangerous situation, which I never put myself in a situation to drive or be with my kids and drive, which I am grateful for. But I think if that had happened, he would have said something, but he did not say anything to me about being concerned because I think he knew that if he would address me like that, it honestly reflecting, it probably would have had the opposite effect. I would have been
Yeah.
so ashamed and so mortified that I would have drank more
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
just felt like I disappointed so many people. So I think he understood it on some level, but he was also my safety net. Anytime we
Mm-hmm.
were out and there was alcohol, he was the driver. He was in control. He was really took care of the situation and made sure that I was always safe.
Hmm.
But I think in a way that kind of gave me permission to keep drinking and when I
Yeah.
really did want to stop.
Yeah. Almost like he's kind of saying, it's okay, I've got your back, you crack on. And I'm sure, like, if you got completely sozzled when you were out, he'd be like, yeah, come on, it's time to go. But like you said, you were quite careful of that image when you were out, and then get home. He's got you home safe. He's gone off to bed because you've all had a good night, and then you're probably having a glass of wine to kind of finish the night off, or three. So it is scary, and also it's a slow process. Like I wasn't. Yeah, I had some silly things that I did when I was in my 20s. Like I got a DUI as well, and maybe upset a few friends, but then that was all taken care of. But it's this slow kind of build and build and build. So how did it kind of, yeah, was that kind of the norm, or did you feel it escalating until it got to, the kind of crux point?
Yeah, yeah. I call it like I would feel these nudges, like little nudges of like, hey, this is not for you. Like this is,
Hmm.
and but I was scared. I would wake up at 3 in the morning and after having a lot of drinks the night before and not being able to sleep and just wondering like this is not how I'm supposed to feel. Deep down, I always knew like you're gonna need to walk away from it someday. Like I knew
Yeah.
that. I think it just inherently I knew that, but I was scared. I couldn't even imagine a world where I could have fun or relax or connect with another human if I was not drinking. So, and of course, I've
Yeah.
had 2 children. I did not drink during my pregnancies, but
Right.
the
Right.
minute that I was able to, I started again. And I think pregnancy was unfortunately like a countdown, not even like really emotionally connecting to pregnancy, but also just kind of looking at the clock thinking like when can I drink again? So all that to say, about 4 years ago, it really the voice was loud. The voice was getting louder of like, this is not for you. You need to. And I would take 30-day breaks. I'm sure people are familiar of like dry January. I wouldn't drink for
Yeah.
the month of January, but I would drink on February 1st, like a countdown. It wasn't until I got into therapy and I started working with some people. I never once brought up in any kind of mentor, someone helping me. I never once brought up my concern with my alcohol. And that's why I
Hmm.
coach now and I just tell people I'm so proud of you for just talking about this because I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I would talk about my trauma, I would talk about the loss in my life, I would talk about shame, but I would not talk about, hey, I think I have an issue with alcohol. But I do credit therapists and coaches for helping me heal other aspects of my life.
Hmm.
And a lot of that work led up to the nudges 3 years ago. Actually, 3 years ago this week, I was in
Oh, wow.
Scotland for a wedding.
Yeah.
But it was the last time that I really drank. So I was on vacation and I was with friends, and my one friend's husband had stopped drinking about 5 months earlier. And he was
Hmm.
like life of the party. This guy was always drinking. He was always just loud and fun. And to see him get sober and to
Hmm.
spend time with him was a huge inspiration to me to think, wow, here's someone that was still having a great time. He's still laughing. He's still
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
of the party, but he's not drinking. So when
Yeah.
I was in Scotland, that was really, I think the voice got so loud of like, you're almost ready. You're almost there.
Yeah.
And I can go into when I actually stopped, but I didn't know if you had any follow ups from that.
Where was that a wedding? Did you say in Scotland?
We were in Glasgow, and then we took the train to Edinburgh, and we did the tour of like St. Andrews and everything. It was beautiful.
Yeah. What a place to kind of stop drinking, having your last drink, because as you know, Scotland is a massive kind of drinking culture, and it was very dangerous at one point. They had like a lower life expectancy than some, some third world countries, because the diet, the health, and the drinking was just killing everyone in Scotland. It's absolute madness. So yeah. So what?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So, and going back, because you said, and it just made me think. You said, if you do dry January, it's like this countdown to February. That's what dry January is for people. It's this countdown. It should be a count up. It should be like, right, I've got to 1st of February. I've got 31 days. Like now, let's get 32, 33, rather than the other way around. Like, I've got like one day left to kind of drink and to be sober, and then I can drink again, because you're already starting to feel clarity. You're starting to feel better, and then yeah, 1st of February comes along, and everyone just jumps back on that wagon. So when did you finally? What date was your final drink then?
Yeah. So Scotland was like the last hurrah. We came back, we had
Hmm.
Christmas, and then my family came to our home here in the first week of January because we had to do a
Hmm.
later Christmas celebration. So my last drink wasn't in Scotland, but that was my last like social event with it. And
Yeah,
then when my
yeah,
family
yeah.
was here, actually my sister and brother-in-law, they own a brewery, so beer is their life. They are
Wow.
surrounded by beer, that's their business. So they brought beers, and nothing extraordinary happened. We had some
Mm.
beers every night that they were here. um, but I did start to feel a little bit of a pain in my gut. So that whole week I'm like, and I don't think it was physical pain from alcohol. I think it was more like change is coming and you're ready. I tend to really
Yeah.
listen to my body, and I'm like, your body's yelling at you right now that you're ready for a change. So that's when I like to tell people, like, some people have a rock bottom moment. That was not my reality. I simply had like enough of the anxiety, enough of the
Hmm.
like, am I drinking too much, do I have a problem? So my family went home. It was Sunday, January 8th, 2023, and I woke up that morning and I'm like, that's it. Like, I had
Hmm.
so much peace. It wasn't, and that's why I love that I stopped drinking on January 8th. I'm like, it's not, if you miss New Year's Day and your goal is to not drink, who cares? Like, stop drinking
Yeah,
on January 8th. So
yeah,
January
yeah,
8th,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I just, that night, it was the first time I actually said out loud to my husband. I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, I want to be done with alcohol forever and I'd like your help. And for someone
Yeah.
who's so independent, so, prides herself on not needing help, that was big for me to actually say, like, I'm ready to be done. Can you help me? And of course he was like, absolutely. We got the alcohol out of the house that night,
Yeah.
and that was my day one almost 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
Wow. Wow. I mean, so commendable. Well done on, well, coming up for 3 years. So that's amazing. And what kind of tools and things did you put in place for that? Obviously, telling your husband is the biggest thing because I think a lot of people, it's scary to begin with to tell other people because they're thinking in the back of their head, what if I fail? What if I fail? I'm going to look stupid. They're going to think, oh well, this is what we expected. So there is that fear for people to be outspoken about it and tell people. But I think it's
Yeah.
possibly one of the most important things that people can do. So what else other than telling your husband and ditching all the booze did you do?
Yeah, it's such a good point too, because I understand the fear of, like, if I put this out there, it's for real. And I
Yeah,
would say, like, just tell someone you trust. Like, it doesn't have to
yeah,
be a public statement. Even if you're like, hey, I don't know if this is forever, but I really would like help for now.
hmm,
That's what I did. But yeah, I don't know if it's big in the UK, but we have this fitness challenge called 75 Hard. Have you heard of that?
I haven't. No, 75 hard. Right. What's that
Yeah,
entail?
if you look at it on Instagram, you can look up hashtags, but an
Yeah.
American guy created it. But it's a 75-day challenge, and there's certain parameters. It's very popular here. So you have to do 2 workouts a day. One of
Hmm.
them has to be outdoors. Take a progress photo, drink a gallon of water, and no alcohol. So the
Okay.
minute I stopped drinking, I decided one day later on January 9th, I was going to start the 75-day challenge. And
Yeah, yeah.
because of that, I knew I had social events coming up. I knew I had dinners coming up. And it's such a well known challenge here that I wasn't ready to talk about what was happening within me. So on that
Hmm.
first, social outing, people are like, "Why are you ordering a mocktail?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing 75 hard."
Yeah.
Immediately people understood. So I think if you have something publicly, like a fitness challenge, right? Like a
Yeah.
30-day cleanse, it's just nice to be able to have that while you're working through a lot of stuff internally, because you
Yeah.
don't have to disclose everything. So that was hugely helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm like starting because I do a bit of running from time to time and this and bit of, gym and healthy stuff. But I want to start running again in January, 1st of January, and I'm going to run every day in January. And then potentially we'll see how February does. So this 75 hard challenge does sound right up my street. So I'll do the run outside and then I'll do the fitness thing on top of that. So that sounds awesome. But I love that because when I got sober 5 years ago, it was like there was all these things on Instagram. It's like what to say to people. Like, you could say you're on antibiotics or you're driving or you're going for a run tomorrow. All of these things. And it is good to have that in your kind of back burner to say, right, because someone will question you. A lot of people will say, why are you not drinking tonight? Because this isn't like you. And it is good to have that as well. And I think when you're on if they know quite well what a 75-day challenge is, they're like, oh yeah, right, Ashley's on that, let's leave her to it. And yeah, and then, like as you say, then you can work out in your head that, right, when am I going to be outspoken about this? Am I going to be outspoken about this? I had someone on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I think she's like 15 years sober now, and I think for the first 4 years she kept it to herself. So it was just her close, like intimate family that knew, and she said it was almost like having another sober day, the day that she actually spoke out about it and told everyone. And she said it was such this like weight off her shoulder. See, for me, I was so bad that I needed to just tell everyone. Do you know what I mean? So it was like set up the Instagram account, not like, oh, look at me, but I would thought this is what's going to hold me accountable. So I was just posting like a daily meme or picture and just putting my day count up, as it went up from, I think the first day I posted was like day 13. And I did that every day for 500 days. And that was my accountability. I know it was weird that from my sober date to when the 500th day was, it was the 1st of January 2022. So it was like it just fell on that, your 1st of January. So it was crazy. I didn't plan that, obviously, because I didn't plan the day that I got sober. But yeah, well done you on, so you've not, how was that initial, I always say the first 3 months are probably the hardest. Were you tempted? Did you get cravings? Did you think, right, I'm gonna crack here?
Yeah. Funny, like people could talk about the pink cloud of sobriety where it's like very exciting. I actually felt more of that in my first few months. Like I felt very inspired. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it got, for some reason, like around 6 months or a year, that's when things were like, oh, this is real. And I wouldn't have like second thoughts, but I guess I would think about it more then. But the first 3 months for me were really like more excitement. Like I felt like I was tapping into like my creativity, and I was excited to drink mocktails and do these things. And I was never planning on like announcing my sobriety, but it was
Mm-hmm.
probably 6 weeks into like the challenge, like 75-day hard. And I kind of like my body, my intuition is just like, do this. So I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
announce to the social media world that I've stopped drinking, and here's why. So I put up a post, it's probably mid-February of like 2023 on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and on Facebook. And I just shared my story. And the reaction was, it was big. Like I had a lot of people, and because also it was hard for me because I had shame around drinking. I never wanted to admit like, hey, I had an issue with it because I thought that would make me seem weak. But I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? Other people are going to relate to me and maybe see themselves in my story. So I need to say this. And I did. And then about 3 months later, I started having a few reels. I just started talking about it. And a few reels on Instagram went viral, like 5 million views viral. And I was getting
Mm-hmm.
like inundated with people in my inbox, in 2023 saying like, this is my story. Can you help me? What's going on? And I was overwhelmed because I'm like, wow, so many people can relate to my story. And I
Yeah.
opened up an alcohol-free community Facebook group, and then I looked into getting recovery coach certified because I wanted to find a way to offer help. But yeah,
Yeah.
I never expected that this would, and now it's become a huge part of my story and how people find me and the coaching that I offer. But I really never expected to share my story publicly. I just woke up, just like I did on January 8th of 3 years ago. I woke up with
Mm-hmm.
conviction, thinking like, this story needs to be shared.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the community and even how much it's grown in the 5 years that I've been on it, especially Instagram. TikTok's taken off as well. But it's, my home is, I would say, is Instagram. But like just so many people that are sharing their stories and helping others, because that's what they say. I mean, I did do a bit of the fellowship, and it's like, just giving back what was given to me. And I think that's paramount, because there are so many people out there that are like not even day one yet, and they're looking, they'll put in that hashtag sober, and like people like yourself will come up, myself will come up, and they're just looking for that hope and support. And I think, what you've been able to do is, because like for me, I trained to be a peer mentor. It was not February last year, it was February before. They'd asked me to do it, and when I was, and we've got a local addiction charity called Motivate here, which helped me get sober, through the SMART program and things like that. And they asked me the first intake, and I said, "Listen, I'm not ready to do that. I don't want to do it." And then they asked me the second time, and I was like, "Yep." So it was like before I could only suggest, like people inboxing me and going, "Oh, this is my story. How do I?" And I'm like, "Well, I can tell you what I did, but I'm not qualified yet to be able to say I think you should do this and how is this treating you." Do you know what I mean? And I guess that's the reason why you wanted to get certified sober coach as well. And when was that you did that? So did you say 2 years ago?
Yeah, early 2024, I got
Hmm.
certified as a recovery coach, and I just recently went through another continuing education for life coaching certification.
Hmm.
So I do feel like I have, and I can also recognize when it's out of my skill set. I'm not an addiction counselor. I'm not like, I didn't go to school for this. So I really am clear of like, these are ways I can help you, and
Yeah.
these are resources I'd recommend if I can't. But I think like what I do specialize in is people that kind of have this dependence that I had on alcohol, but really want to lead healthy and fit lives and know that this is holding them back because I have a background in health and fitness. So I really merge the two of like, we're going to work on your goals to cut back on alcohol eventually with the goal of removing it. And we're going to amp up your health and fitness routine. Because what
Yeah.
I found is like that leaning into health and fitness really helped me stay alcohol free. Like, no, I wasn't super tempted in the beginning, but I was doing that 75 hard challenge. Like, I was very committed to my health and fitness goals. And it was almost a relief that I knew alcohol was the linchpin that was holding me back from feeling healthier. I didn't change anything in my health routine, and I lost like 8 pounds in my first 2 months. And I'm not, I'm not an overweight person, so it was a lot to lose 8 pounds just from
Yeah.
not drinking. So now I
Yeah.
really help people do both.
Yeah, and it's mad, isn't it, to think how calorific, kind of drinking alcohol is if you're doing it such a kind of steady pace as well. And I think, you know, like I said, there's so many people out there that are struggling and they just want help. And I think being like yourself and myself, that's been there, done that, coming from that peer mentor place, that we've got lived experience, can be sometimes more beneficial than someone that has trained at school to be an addiction counselor and things like that if they've not been through it. And I'm not saying to people don't go and use that, because any type of method you can use to get sober is paramount. But I think, speaking for myself, when I first got sober and I was put in front of like all different types of counselors and things, and the first question I would ask them was like, are you sober? And if they said no, I'd be quite belligerent and rude, and I'd be like, I don't want to talk to you, because I was still drinking in those days, and it was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And right enough, for me, when I got sober, I was listening to people that had been there, themselves, and that, knowing that I wasn't alone in the struggle. So yeah, it's crazy, and I think likes of all the different types of coaching and counseling, it's very paramount to have other things involved. Like yours is the fitness. I think the one that I'm going to be doing is kind of holistic and a lot of breath work as well. And I think like I'm going to start adding all of these different, kind of certifications to my kind of knowledge, because it's all helping. It's also scary when likes of AA, and they'll say, "Oh, if you don't go to AA, you're not going to get sober," and all that. That's rubbish. There's smart, there's AA, there's NA, there's CA, but also like listening to podcasts, watching films, reading books. Like I just threw everything I had into, sponging up all the different methods. And I just, it was like throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what stuck. It was like, what's working for me, and I was just taking bits from everything, you know. Um,
Absolutely. You mentioned that, and books were huge for me. Like one of my outdoor workouts was a walk. So for
yeah.
75 days, I was outside for 45 minutes and I was listening to books like This Naked Mind on Audible. And that was my
Hmm.
first book I listened to, Quit Literature. I always knew I wanted to read that book, but I always was afraid because I'm like, as soon as I read this, I can't unread it. So
Yeah.
as soon as I stop drinking, I'm like, I'm ready. And, I encourage people to read those books, whether they've become sober yet or not, because knowledge is power. And I think, like, do most people know that alcohol was established as a carcinogen in 1988, like 37
Yeah.
years ago? Like, most people don't know that. Most people don't know the link between no amount of alcohol is safe for risk of cancer and things like that. And those were things that
Hmm.
I did not, I was literally like, if you picture an ostrich, like put their head in the sand, that was me. Like I knew it was bad, but I didn't want to know about it. I didn't want to talk about it. So when
Hmm.
I was ready to stop drinking, I allowed that knowledge in. And I think, part of my community is we oftentimes read books together and talk about it, because whether you're sober yet or you're sober curious, I encourage anyone to just educate yourself. It doesn't mean you have to
Hmm.
feel shame or judgment, but we weren't taught this stuff. As I'm in my 30s. As a millennial, we were not taught the dangers of alcohol. We were taught that alcohol is the answer.
Yep.
So I would encourage that to anyone for sure.
It's mad. I mean, like I'm on the Isle of Man, and we've got that, like as I say, motivate go into the schools, and they don't go in and do a talk on drugs. They do a talk on drugs and alcohol. So they're explaining the full dangers of it all. Because I think, I don't know in the US, but like back when I was at school, yeah, you'd get some people coming in going, drugs are bad, don't do that. But there was never alcohol linked in with that. But now they're starting to do that, and especially over here. And I think it's fantastic because I think the youngsters, the new generation coming through, they definitely are a bit more wary of it because they're using the internet, they're googling it, and if they're seeing there's no safe level of alcohol that doesn't have a link to cancer. Like you said, 1988, WHO categorized it as I think category 1 carcinogen, like tobacco, asbestos, and radiation. Like, why is it still being? If it was found, if it was discovered today, it wouldn't be legal, which is just absolute madness. And I think I almost sometimes feel like I've got a friend who said to me back when I started the podcast, he said, "Oh, I don't want to listen to your podcast because," he said, "I think it might, make me want to stop drinking." I was like, okay, fair enough. Don't listen to it then, because he thought like if he's going to hear things, it's like, so I almost feel like, am I sounding like a bit of a flat earther? Like I'm telling people this stuff that's absolute rubbish? No, this is all like, fact and research that I've done that's out there, and it's just not being publicized as much. I think it will eventually, but I think right now they're making too much money off of it, and they're like, well, why should we stop doing that? People want to drink. All I'm saying is put some labels on the bottles and let people know the warnings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ashley, do you regret getting sober?
No. No. I always say my only regret is not doing it sooner. In
Not doing it.
2014, I did my first yoga teacher training, and it was 11 years ago. And we had to write a letter to ourselves, and I still have that letter. So in April of 2014, part of my letter that I wrote to myself was, "Please stop drinking. You don't need it." So I knew 11 years ago I wanted to stop. I knew this seed was planted a long time ago.
Yeah,
The only thing I will say is, like, I guess I wasn't prepared for. I was always kind of a person that didn't really feel a lot, and I think alcohol had a lot to do with it. I wasn't very happy. I was never very sad. I was like very just in the middle. And the
yeah,
last 3 years, I've really had to learn like to navigate my emotions and to know that it's okay to feel bigger emotions. I've cried more in the last 3 years than I probably ever have, and I've laughed more in the last 3 years than I probably ever have. So
yeah,
I think life was meant to experience the extremes, and I think when we numb ourselves, we only live in the middle. And I think
yeah.
that's something I had to get used to, but I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade this like big emotional life for being numb like I was for so long.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing what you said there because it's this numbness, this escapism of living our lives, and it's like people say, you see memes and it's like they're on top of a boat with a bottle of whiskey or whatever or Bacardi and they're living their best life. No, 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 no. This sober life is living my best life because I'm aware of everything. Yeah, there's good days, there's bad days, but I'm not numbing any of it out. I'm experiencing it to its maximum potential. And I think we're too, we're living in this world where we've got phones and computers and, even like having your AirPods in all the time. There's constant kind of updates coming through, like, oh, you've got a text message when I'm listening to an Audible book. So there's constant distractions. And for me, like I was terrified to be alone, like on my own and with my own thoughts. So I would just drink to kind of block that out and just kind of go, right, yeah, see you later, reality type thing. And it was like, once I actually started, when I first got sober and I moved into this little cottage over here, just me and my cat. I didn't have a TV. Yeah, I had a laptop, but I was like, I just enjoy sitting, maybe a bit of music or reading a book, but no full distractions. Like my phone was there, but like for a long time, I didn't really know many people over here apart from my recovery mates. So my phone wasn't ping, 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 and I just enjoyed that time. And I think a lot of people need to learn to just be with themselves, and enjoy who they are, and like getting to know who I was always supposed to be was the most rewarding thing sobriety's brought me, and it's still rewarding now. It's still only the beginning. Yeah.
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 What advice would you give to someone that was thinking of getting sober, or on like just early days? What advice would you give them to, especially with this time of year? Christmas is tough.
Christmas is tough. Just the word of advice is like awareness is already progress. So if you are already thinking about your relationship with alcohol and you're curious about what alcohol would like a decreased alcohol lifestyle would look like, what I
Hmm.
found in my coaching is a lot of people are so hard on themselves. So give yourself some grace. And I think if it's unrealistic, we're recording this right around the holidays. If it's unrealistic for you to think about not drinking over the holidays, I
Hmm.
would say make your plan now that what's January going to look like. Plug into an accountability group, commit to dry January, but like you were saying, don't consider it a countdown. Could it be a count up instead of just
Yeah.
getting through the month? Could you dive into a support group or get a coach or read a book or do something that it's not just about not drinking, it's about why were we drinking in the first place and what do we believe about alcohol to be true, and could we allow ourselves to create new beliefs around alcohol. So have grace with yourself,
Hmm. Hmm.
but most importantly, if this is on your heart and you're listening to this for a reason, make a plan. What are you going
Yeah.
to do come the new year?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that, Ashley. And just lastly, do you have a recommendation for a podcast, a book, or a film, with to do with recovery, or all three?
Oh, I really enjoy the Sober Motivation podcast.
Oh yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I mentioned This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, which
Yeah.
I think is very helpful for reframing your beliefs about alcohol. I'm currently leading a group. My free community is doing the Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace right now. So it's literally a 30-day experiment to give up alcohol, and they're very short journal prompts each day to get you thinking about how you're feeling in these 30 days. So that one is a huge one if you're ready to you're ready to take that commitment to do 30 days
Hmm.
alcohol free. Um, I think that's it. I think just those two books were really, really helpful for me. And I get one more book that was helpful was Push Off From Here by Laura McCowan. It's
Oh yeah.
9 essential truths to get you through sobriety and life. And so, regardless if you're sober now or considering, the 9 truths are just like universal. You can apply them to your life. And I think it's just a really special book.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thanks, Ashley. And where can people find you? Like your website, your Instagram.
Yeah, I hang out a lot on Instagram. So
Yeah.
my Instagram is coach underscore Ashley 88. So I am on there. I do have a free community on Facebook. The information's on my Instagram bio. Every
Hmm.
month I run free challenges for anyone that's wanting some extra support. So you can find me on there.
Cool, cool. I love it. Obviously, I'll put all this in the show notes and the literature as well that we've put on there. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on and giving up your time and sharing your story, because we appreciate you, Ashley, and appreciate your sobriety. So thank you.
Yeah, Jimmy, thanks so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
Good. Wow. Speak to you soon. Cheers, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Such a great conversation, great chat with you. And like when she had that epiphany and saying to her husband, "That's me done. I would like you to help me with this, but I'm done with alcohol." So getting rid of all the alcohol out of the house that night, and that was her day one. And sometimes it can be that simple, just that thing where you've had enough of it. And I think a lot of people out there that are still drinking, they have had enough of it, but they're just not connecting those dots to saying, right, I need to give this up, because we live in a world where it's just so hard to give that up. And that's the scary part, even though we know we're done with it, the thought of not drinking again, it shouldn't be. it shouldn't be this hold over us for the rest of our life, this whole kind of control thing. It's like, oh my God, I can't imagine a life without alcohol, even though I only drink, this and this and that. You're probably drinking more than you say you are anyway. So, just knock it on the head, because it's not serving you any purpose. And like Ashley, your life can be so much better without it. It's like that whole, once our eyes are open, we can't look back, and we just want other people to see it for how we see it. Ashley, did use the 75 hard day challenge to just kind of tell people at the beginning, I'm not drinking because I'm doing this. And that was good. That was 75 days to get our head into kind of gear and go, right, I know what I'm going to tell people once that's done. I've given up boozing. But for that first initial thing, it's that hard thing, because society says you should drink. So, to segue into my sober seasons, it started today, which is the 21st of August. 21st of March. It runs until the 21st of June. And it's basically 90 days. It's the season, it's the equinox to the solstice, and solstice to the equinox. So it's ongoing all year, but it gives people that like starting boost to just go, I want to do this for 90 days, see what happens. So it's not like, we're saying give up forever, but the majority of people on the group on Facebook are sober. And they've done their first couple of seasons or whatever, and they're still going. So just why not give it a go? Because a month isn't it long enough? Do it for 90 days. But yeah, as I say, Ashley's doing amazing things. She's now doing the well, it's probably finished now, so I do apologize, because we recorded this a week before Christmas, so there was a little bit of mention of Christmas in there. Now we're in spring, so apologies in that. But I'm sure she'll be doing another alcohol experiment from Annie Grace's book in the near future. So yeah, just check her out. She's got an amazing Instagram page, great website, and as I say, she'll be over 3 years now, because that was the 8th of January. So yeah. All good here, guys. Just kind of gearing up for the sober seasons and springtime, and enjoying it, and just trying to get people out on get people like listening to my reels and watching my reels, so that they can go, well, why am I still doing this? Because that's the whole point. I'm just trying to get people a little bit more educated on why they're drinking, because they don't need it. So yeah, if you like this episode, hit the share button, hit the like button, hit the 5-star review button, leave me a comment, because it really does help people, get to the podcast. And if you've been enjoying it, then you want other people to enjoy it as well. So please do that and share it about, guys. Catch me on recovery_Jimmy if you've not already been following me on Instagram. Some of you might just be finding the podcast, so go and check out my Instagram page. But until next week, guys, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Peace. Love you all.